and it was including 30 obelisks and about I think it's 17 fontaines on different drawings that we have, and we also have like the general plan for the garden. The first general plan is about 1630, and the pattern that we're modeling today, that we talked about, it's a pattern that first seen 1640 and then 1660. But of course, in that circle, in that axle, and in that circle, it was fontaines. And higher hedges and so on, and pots and plants with topiaria and everything. So it was a fantastic garden. But it's difficult. And when we came, my family, I was telling some of you that I belong to the family that owns this place, and my mother bought it in year 2000. So for about 20 years we have trying to maintain the castle and open it up for the public. Because after Åke Tott, 1640, and his son took over the place when he died, and then beginning of I think it's 1695, the royal family decided that it's too big, it's too fantastic to be in private property, so it came back to the royal family. And when it came back to the royal family, it was in the royal family for 100 years, and 38 of those years it was Gustav III. It's the theater king, the king that spent a lot of money on culture and theater and everything, and the gardening was also one thing that he was really into. So he spent 38 years at Ekersund. He really liked the place. He had a lot of surprise parties for the family and the royalness. He also had a tournament game like the old knights and fighting, and everything was at Ekersund. So it was really his home. He spent a lot of the Christmas and summertime and everything. So bad decisions inside Stockholm, and then go to the countryside and then can be safe. and being a boy, he's writing quite a lot of in his letters to his brother and so on, that he, with a horse and a wagon and full speed in the alleys and racing, that was something that he really liked to do at Ekersund and had the opportunity to do. Because Åke Tott, he imported 10,000 trees 1640 for planting in alleys. The huge number, it's just to have something to compare with, the royal castle Svartsjö on one of the lakes in Mälaren, they imported 28 alley trees, and it was Dutch lime trees. In Sweden it's always called Dutch, not the tidiga Europea. So it was always referred to like the Dutch, but we could also find it in Sweden, but it was, if you should plant an alley, then it should be Dutch provenance, so to say. And those 28 trees, they had to pay for all of them. One tree was about the same price as a small family had in income during 1 year. And at Ekersund, 10,000 trees. In Svartsjö, I think it was 8 or 9 trees that survived the trip with a boat and salt water. At Ekersund, 10,000 trees, we can see that at least about 8,000 trees was planted. So it was such a huge planting and such a huge scale, never seen in Sweden. And it was before Drottningholm, that is the royal family today in Stockholm. And it was also before Versailles started to create those huge axles and having the garden running into infinity and a little bit more, as they described. Yeah. Last autumn, we dug out the pond down there. It's about 600 meters away. We had the possibility to have a fontaine, and the fontaine is with self-pressure, because at Ekersund it's not only the castle and the garden in front of it, it's also a parallel garden. You can see it on this map. Unfortunately, I only found one in Värdshuset, but I think we can have some more in the cafe. The castle and then the park in front, but then a parallel park with a long pond that is the shape of a shovel. This is the highest point with water, so it's 17 meters down there. So we have a 750-meter long pipe running all the way down, and with self-pressure we succeeded. But now it's one fontaine. As I mentioned, it was 17 fontaines, and it was 28 water cascades when water running from like a stair from all of the steps. Compared to what has been, it's nothing, but it's fantastic to have it running once again. And we also have the possibility now to start and stop it from our telephone. So it's a new technology, and it was surprises all over the place. It could be some different kind of trees, it could be a village, or it could be whatever. And that's created the English garden. So when you walked in the garden, you should not have like this, that you could see everything. It's military order, it's exact distance in between the trees, everything is corresponding. If you plant trees in this direction, then you can fit exactly the number of amount trees because the distances everything is corresponding. But the English garden, it should be something else. You should walk around the corner and then a surprise. It was a Norwegian hytte, a small house, a Norwegian house. Another corner and another bend, it should be trees from pine trees from another part of the world. It should be everything that was surprising, and birds in a cage and so on. So this garden changed most of the gardens that we had, and a few places we have saved the different garden styles next to each other. But at Ekersund we also have that the garden, the English garden in the forest. It's not that much renovated. It's renovated with a walking path, so you can have a walk and have a look around. But then the management of the English park was so much less than managing the water and the fontaine and the cut hedges and everything. So due to less cost on the garden, the English park changed everything. So a lot of places in Sweden have an English park, but they don't have the Baroque garden anymore, and understandable. So that's also another thing with the maulers and the automowers, to having the possibility to, you can at least see how it was meant to be, instead of just having a grass field that is molded in one height and not create anything for the fantasy to have a look. But later on, the Gustav III, he had to fight. He was connected in relationship with the first Gustav Vasa in Sweden. And Gustav Vasa, he was a fighter king, and the main enemy was the Russians, of course. But the Russians was Gustav III's cousin, and she didn't want to start the war. So he had a huge problem to start the war against Russia. And it was also politics inside the decision to fight Russia, due to that King Gustav III married Sophia Magdalena from Denmark. And Denmark, she had and Denmark had a relationship within the family to England. So what Sweden saw at that time was that England, Denmark, Sweden in one war against Russia. Finally, but she didn't want to fight, and Gustav III, he solved it by dressing up his own soldiers as Russians, walking over the line and shooting back on the Swedes, and the war was on. But this was a disaster, and later on, when his son Gustav IV took over, we lost Finland to Russians. So it was very demanding on money to succeed, to maintain such war. It was very, very expensive. Gustav III, he sold Ekolsund. It was a family from Scotland, the Seaton family, that bought Ekolsund. The Seaton family had ownership of land all over the world. It was a banking family, and they made profit, and people running bankruptcy, and they maintained the land. So it was just another land, so to say, at Ekolsund. But it was the royal family old park, so they really tried hard to maintain it. But during 1820 or something, the garden was about 200 years old, and it was much more profit in having apple trees and running it as a industrial garden and industrial farmland and so on. So more and more everything disappeared, but they continued planting trees. So in the Arboretum you can still see trees from the Seaton family. For example, the Abies group over there, and also the two Abies over there. The large tree in the main axle, it's also a Seaton tree. So we have quite a lot of trees from the Seaton family, but 5 generations Seaton at Ekolsund, and the last family, he had divorce with his wife. That was the wife was not his choice, it was the mother's choice, of course, and then it was fight in the family due to a lot of things. It was Dallas and Falcon Crest, we used to say that it was total fight within the family. So he decided, when it was a divorce and bankruptcy, to bring out all the documentation, all the papers, all the notes, everything, and made a big bonfire outside. So he burnt everything. So we know very, very little about the Seaton.